Welcome to the newest episode of Barely Living the Dream. I'm here with Chris Warren, and joining us today is Stephen Wolfe.
How's it going?
First time on the podcast. I guess let's just start at the beginning.
Okay.
Because I was trying to think of this. How did we meet again? Do you remember?
Yeah. I think officially we met through Carlos Tovar.
Right.
Because we went to dinner.
To what context it was?
Well, it was when we were like prepping Doll Factory, and I had been trying to meet you for a while.
Yeah. Stand in line.
Yeah. I remember like one day I just found out, oh shit, there's a Houston film community here, which I had no idea about.
Right.
And I actually found both of y'all's names on y'all remember the Houston Horror website?
I do remember that. Yeah.
And
yeah.
It had like all the notable people on there.
I remember that.
And I was like, okay. And I remember seeing you, and you were on there too.
Yeah.
Weird.
And
I mean, not weird, but you know.
and I was like, well, I'm just
own it.
Yeah, and I was like, well, I'm just going to start networking with these people because again, like up to this point, I mean, naive. I guess I was kind of naive to think that like I was the only one in Houston doing it, right. But you know, found out there was more people doing it, and I think I'd sent you an email or something,
right.
And anyway, nothing ever came of it until we were doing Doll Factory, and then Carlos had known you, and I was like, oh man, I would love to meet Mel, and he's like, well, let me see what I can do, and he arranged for us to get dinner that one night. Yeah. I think that's how we officially met. So
yeah, I think that sounds about right.
Yeah.
So going back, I guess before that, you're from Houston, right?
Right.
Grew up
Yeah.
here in the Houston area. What sort of started you? Because by that point you had already made Midnight Abyss.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So what got you on the path?
So I grew up on like in the suburbs of Leak City, which is like South Houston. Mm-hmm. More toward Galveston, actually. Mm-hmm. And grew up on a little cul-de-sac with a bunch of kids my age. And, it was one of those things. And again, this is like, it's funny how many people say this. It's like, oh, yeah, I used to make home movies with my friends. And that's but it is. That's how it all started. Like, we were already doing that kind of stuff anyway before a camera was introduced into the equation. And so we would, we'd see movies, and then we'd all pick characters and act them out and stuff like that. And I was always I used to be a big drawer when I was a kid, so I would do little comic style stories and draw them out and stuff like that. And then I remember one night one of my buddies who lived we were around the same age, and his older brother had gotten back from the army, and they were throwing like a welcome back party or whatever. And I remember we were all at his house playing, just messing around, and his brother came in with, he had one of those big old like VHS camcorders, and he was like, "Hey, I want to shoot like a cop spoof, like the TV show Cops." And we were like, "Oh my god, that sounds amazing!" It's like some of us were cops, some of us were like the bad guys or whatever, and we went out and did it, and because it was shot on a VHS tape, we just, once we were done, we just plopped it in the VHS player and showed it for the party. Yeah. And like everyone was like, laughing, having a good time with it. Right. And that's when it kind of clicked. I was like, oh shit, I like this. Right. I like this, I like the satisfaction of making something and then showing it to people. And that was where it all, that was like the origin of that. And like from there, like we were just like obsessed. Like we were trying to get, our buddy's dad, who owned the camera technically, and like we were just always begging him to shoot something for us, and we'd come up with little things and stuff like that. So eventually, like it got to a point where he was so tired of it, but I wanted to do it so much that like I saved some money and bought my own little camera. Yeah. It was like a little Hi8 digital camera, and I mean that's when it really took off. Like we were making stuff all the time, and
so you guys are editing in the camera, basically, right?
Yeah, right. Really do, yeah. Well, then fast forward a couple years, and then I go to like Best Buy or something, and you see like that editing, like cheap editing software, right? And so I buy that, and I start editing my stuff, and it's just like I'm just expanding my horizon with like what I'm able to do. I started adding music in, and I thought that was just the coolest thing, And it was just that. I mean, it just kind of kept evolving from that. And then fast forward even more time, and I was in community college, and I was taking a video class. It's just like an elective. And there was an older gentleman in the class who I I remember one day he came in and he had like all this like really like high grade professional equipment, and I got to talking with him, and he for his day job he's a still photographer.
Okay.
But he wanted to take the classes to learn how to do video because he was trying to he wanted to learn how to do that so he could add that to like he could film videos for clients and stuff like that, but do it like real professionally. And so like I was like, well, I had no access to that kind of equipment, so I was like, I'm gonna come up with an idea, and I'm gonna pitch it to him, and maybe he'll shoot it for me. Because he had lighting and all this like crazy stuff that I just hadn't had, access to.
Right.
And I had a short which became Midnight Abyss, but it was a short at first.
Okay.
And I had sent it to him, and we met at the college, and we talked about it. And he was like, "Yeah, I'm down to do this with you." And then one thing led to another, and we start making the short, and then it ended up turning into a feature, and then blah, blah.
Which, so, not to cut you off, but funny thing, the way I even knew about Stephen was because of all of our mutual friend Taylor. He did the visual effects for Midnight
Oh, I
Abyss.
didn't know that.
And I had,
crazy.
So I just walked in because I was kind of like, during school, I was away from my house, like where my mom lived. And so I was like, well, let me see if it was just close for me to live with Taylor during the week. So I was staying there, and so I walked in one day, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? Because he was like adding bats to something. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's like, oh, it's this thing that Stephen Wolfe doing. I'm like, who the hell is Stephen Wolfe? And he was like, it's just this guy that contacted me about doing visual effects, and that was the first time I heard your name. So it was just funny.
That's crazy.
It was funny the way that all kind of circled around and finally met you, and like.
I don't even remember how I found Taylor though. It might have been through the class. I don't know. Was he?
I know, because you didn't go to San Jac.
Yeah, I did. That's the class I was taking. I was taking maybe he was in that class.
Maybe.
I can't remember.
But I would have been in that class.
Oh, were y'all?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, I mean, unless he took something that I didn't know about, which is possible.
Yeah, I can't remember how we got linked up together.
So,
yeah, that's wild. I didn't realize that he had worked on that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was weird. I was like, whoa, okay.
So you started as a short, it evolved into a feature.
Yeah, which again, in hindsight, don't ever do that. Like, because we're in the middle of making this, and then all of a sudden I'm like, oh, I'm gonna turn into a feature.
Right.
So I just go add script pages, and we just keep shooting, and then it takes 3 or 4 years, and then it's finally done. You know. But I'm glad I went through that one, because through that project led me to my second feature, which was Doll Factory.
And how much time passed between the two?
Let's see. I think we started shooting Midnight Abyss in 2010. In 2012, we were shooting Doll Factory. So there's like 2 years there.
Yeah. Okay.
But I think I was still even finishing Midnight Abyss through Doll Factory. After we had shot Doll Factory, it was one of those projects that's like, I don't know if it's ever going to get done.
Right. Yeah.
But it did. It did get done. It's not, unfortunately, it's not officially released. I'm hoping that'll change one day. But
This is Doll Factory?
No. Midnight Abyss. Yeah.
Okay.
But we'll see. We'll see about that.
Yeah.
There's a whole.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Sure
there's a whole thing about
It's a
it.
whole story. There always is.
So how did Doll Factory get going?
So Doll Factory originally was it was the same, like we were just going to do it the same way we did Midnight Abyss, was real, guerrilla filmmaking. Just when we all are off work and school and stuff, we get together and we're going to shoot it. But Doll Factory was a more ambitious idea, because I intentionally made Midnight Abyss like low key. Like I think there were like 4 actors. It was just a very like small scale kind of film, but I did that intentionally because I knew but Doll Factory was like an ensemble cast, and then with the the dolls and all that kind of stuff. But again, I was just gonna go for it,
Right.
And it was taking longer than expected. And then I remember I got a call one day from my buddy Andy Palmer, who was the lead in Midnight Abyss.
Okay.
And he called me up one day, and he said he had gotten some money, and he's like, I want to get Doll Factory going. Like, how much is it going to take? And originally we were still going to do it like real low key. Like, I think I probably like threw a number at him. Like, I don't know, like $5,000, $7,000, whatever.
Right.
And then one thing led to another, and we had like $100,000 budget, you know, and because like he kind of was like, no, I want to do this like legit,
Right.
Like let's hire a real cinematographer. Not that Chris, who shot Midnight Bits, I mean, he was a real cinematographer too, but he's like let's hire, you know, a DP that's like done a lot of stuff,
Yeah.
and we'll get a full crew and all this other stuff, and I was like, okay, yeah, let's do it, you know,
Yeah.
because I wanted that experience of like. Not that like, you know, not that doing a small film isn't making a real movie, it is, but I wanted that experience of working with a full crew and stuff like
Of course.
that.
Yeah.
Even though I was scared as fuck.
Yeah,
You know, like, I was really nervous because I was like, you know, I was like in my early 20s, and I'm like, I'm gonna be working with all these like legit people. I was like, I hope I don't embarrass myself.
Yeah.
But at the same time, I knew I had to do it.
Yeah.
You know, I can't pass an opportunity.
Yeah, for sure. Because now you start to realize how few those opportunities
Exactly.
are.
I'm like, this might be the only time, you know? Like, this might be my last film, you know? You never know, so...
And you met, did you know Andy through school? Or?
No, okay, so how I met Andy was... originally when I made Midnight Abyss, the lead in it, I had an idea who I wanted. I had a person in mind, but...
But George Clooney didn't get back to you.
Yeah, exactly.
Just didn't have him on speed dial.
Right. I get it.
Well, and see, another thing I ran into a lot of, and I even did this on Doll Factory, and again, in hindsight, like, you know, you look back and you're like, you probably shouldn't have done that, but like, I was just so used to always casting my friends because they're there, you know?
Yeah.
And, you know, some of them are actually, I mean, they're not like classically trained actors or anything, but some of them, like, they can do it. They can do the job, right?
Right. Yeah.
And so I had a friend in mind that I wanted to play the lead in Midnight Abyss, but then, like, I think he, you know, I actually auditioned him, thankfully, and we didn't start shooting, but he wasn't right for the part, and I knew it. And I'd already cast the lead actress, and I met her through a buddy of mine who I worked with a lot. And anyway, she had already been cast, and so I was like, I auditioned a few people, and it really wasn't working out for the lead. And then she was in an acting class, and she's like, hey, I got someone I think would be good for this part. And that was Andy. And he was great. He was exactly what I needed for that part.
Gotcha.
And that's how. And we had a really good, you know, we worked really well together on Midnight Abyss. Because, again, it was a very intimate film. And because it's only a few cast members. And, you know, we're out there, like, overnights just shooting. So, you know, we got, you know, you get to know someone on those kind of shoots,
sure.
you know. And so that's why. And I already casted him in Doll Factory when we were just trying to do it the same way. So he was already involved in the project. But, you know, he helped it become what it is, you know.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So.
How long was did you say how long the Midnight Abyss shoot was?
Oh, man, I don't even remember. I mean,
Was it spaced out over?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and it was one of those things where I edited it myself. So it was one of those where you shoot it. You know, I'm over at Chris's house editing it on his computer, and it's just
Not this Chris.
No.
Chris.
Chris Coleman, who was the cinematographer on
Gotcha.
Midnight Abyss. But yeah, it was. I mean, it was years of shooting, editing, and I mean, we even had shot footage that we went back and reshot because you know, as you go along, like especially when you don't prep, which this is a lesson of like. Make sure you do your prep.
Hear that?
'Cause,
We're
you know,
not the only ones that say that. Prep is important.
Oh man, and I learned that the hard way. And another thing I learned the hard way on Midnight Abyss is, you know, we didn't have a sound person.
Yeah.
And I remember the whole like finale of Midnight Abyss. It's like this fight with the main character and the vampire, like out in the woods. We didn't have we didn't even record audio through the camera. So everything was muted.
Holy crap.
So we literally
Accidentally or
accidentally.
Okay.
Yeah, it wasn't intentional. So like
it was a choice.
yeah. So our the post sound mixer, he literally had to recreate the whole. But it sounds great.
Yeah,
Like he really did an amazing job. But post sound on Midnight Abyss, that was a whole nother process too. That was it was brutal. But anyway, yeah.
So you get to Doll Factory. Andy says, "Let's make it.
Yeah.
Let's make it for real." And I remember because obviously I was there for a little bit. But remind me, how long did you shoot for that? And you did it like all together, right? Pretty much.
Oh yeah. I think it was like I want to say It was like 20, 25, 26 days of shooting, something like that. And then, a couple of days of like pickups and stuff.
Right.
But that was all. I think we were shooting 5 or 6 days a week simultaneously, like until it was done. So, and again, because of our budget, we were allowed to do that, which was cool. But yeah. But I remember, man, like I remember we started shooting. It was Valentine's Day weekend, 2012, and like it was so cold, man. That was it was a pretty brutal shoot, and then half the shoot we were in that old dusty warehouse, so we all had developed coughs and stuff like that. I mean, but again, it was just so like. I was running on adrenaline that whole time and just excitement, like the whole time. Because I remember even before we started shooting, everyone's telling me like, "Oh, you're going to be so worn out, like it's going to be so brutal." But maybe it was just again because I was running on so much adrenaline. And my age at the time, I was just I got through it pretty easily. Sure. But then like after the shoot was over, I was out.
Yeah, I do remember you saying 2012 or because I was like, why did I not? Why was I? Because I let you guys use that camera.
Right, and you were on set a few days.
But I wasn't a lot, and this is why. Because that was when. So 2 reasons. One, it was 2012, so Melanie was pregnant. Oh. And she was like, "Do not go hurt yourself on some." She's like, "I need you." But also, I was working at the pizza place. I didn't want anybody to know it. I was still at the Girl Scouts, but I was already working at the pizza place. I almost said the name, but whatever. And I was trying to hide it because I was embarrassed about it, And so I'm like, yeah, okay, because Klinger was around that time too, I think, and maybe a little bit after. But I'd be like, oh, well, I can come for a few hours, but I got a meeting to go to or whatever. So because I would have just helped if I could, but I had to.
Yeah, because I remember
having to bounce. I would remember changing my shirt in my car as I was leaving the set, putting the pizza shirt on and going to Reginelli's. So I said, it's fine.
Whatever.
Yeah, to deliver pizzas.
Because I think we even at one point in pre-production we had tossed the idea around of maybe you directing some second unit stuff.
That and I feel like you asked me to be somebody too, like you were going to have me be.
You were probably going to be one of the ghosts or something at the end.
I do remember that. And I think you told me when it was shooting. I knew for a fact I had to work on 1 or 2, and I was like, oh, I'm gonna have to bow out. The role's not right for me, or whatever bullshit I said. But it was because I had to work. But I do remember going and bringing you guys the camera and being around for a little bit of it. I remember watching you guys shoot a little bit.
at least a few days.
Yeah, at the factory for sure. Because it was in 5th Ward, right?
Yeah, I mean it was in the hood.
It's the same. It's the same factory that like a lot of people have shot at.
Oh yeah, Greg shot there. That's where I met. That's where I met Greg SD. Yeah, because we were on a Greg thing. Right. Greg Carter. Yeah, different Greg. We have so many Gregs. But a lot of people have shot at that factory. So you shot that. What do you remember most about that experience, like the shooting in particular?
I mean, it's funny. Like, I think overall it went pretty smoothly. But I remember the one like big hiccup we had during shooting was we had this big finale. It was a big sword fight with the evil doll maker who gets resurrected, and then Andy's character, the nerdy brother Melvin, and they have this huge sword fight and stuff like that. And we had blocked out like 3 days just to shoot it. And I remember the first day we ran into like the issue, the prosthetics. Tom Martino did our prosthetics, and first whatever, I don't know what had happened, but he got a bad batch of like prosthetics, and it and again I don't know all the technical lingo.
Yeah, that happened to Marcus a couple times too, especially because of Houston.
It's the way
the humidity and stuff will fuck it up. It won't set right. Yeah.
And I just remember like he got it on Patrick Sane, who played Yegor, the doll maker, but like I mean as soon as like we got up and running, it was just falling off his face. And it was one of those things where we couldn't do anything about it. Yeah. And I remember we had to make a choice. We were like, I mean, do we just try to get through it, or do we just send everyone home, reconvene, come back at it tomorrow, but we're going to lose a full day when we had, and ultimately that's what we did. Like we just, I think we ended like half a day, and we reconfigured. We came back at it the next day, and we had to we had to trim stuff out and everything, but we got it done. But I always remember, them saying like, on these type budgets, to lose a day like that, it's like detrimental.
Huge deal. Brutal. And remind me, did you have was everybody local, or did you bring anybody in at all?
Everyone was local.
Everyone's
I'm pretty
local.
sure.
So you weren't
unless
like
maybe a couple people were from like Austin or something, but
you weren't really paying for hotels. Or
No.
anything like that. Okay,
I think everyone was local
because that's how it really
sure.
multiplies.
Yeah.
Live as local.
Exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't remember.
But that was like the biggest like thing we ran into. But like I said, the next day we just came at it. We had a game plan and we got through it. Like I remember that day though, like instead of doing a 12-hour day, I think we did like 16 hours. Just to make up for that time we lost the first day.
Right.
But everybody was like everyone was troopers. Like we got through it, you know.
Yeah.
And so we made up for that.
Yeah. And so what was I guess then you go into post. What was the post-production process like? I don't remember how long it took you to finish.
Post, and see, we ran into the same issue we did on Doll Factory, where it's like we got through shooting like on schedule, but then post like killed us because we kind of ran out of money.
Yeah.
And,
it happens to all of us.
And I also made the big mistake too, like, I mean, the thinking, you know, at the time, me and Andy, like, the thinking was like, oh, okay, Jeff Fontaine, our DP, we were like, he shot it, and he was like, I'll edit it for you. And we were like, well, he shot it, so he knows the footage and everything. He could probably like get this thing cut together really fast. Yeah. But unfortunately, because he's a working DP, I mean, it took like a year just to get the thing edited.
Yeah.
You know, it might have been more than a year. I don't know. And then after that, our visual effects guy, Danny McCarty, like, again, he did an amazing job, but, I mean, he did it for, like, pennies. Like, he literally, like, I mean, what we paid him and the amount of, like, VFX it was, he was literally just doing it for free at that point.
Right.
But that took a year.
Yeah.
Because, again, if you're not paying them, you know, they got to, you know, you got to be, you know, lenient and let them, like, get to it when they can get to it. Because they got to pay bills and stuff.
Good old bro deal.
Yeah. That's exactly what it was.
Yeah.
I mean, I think even after he finished, like, me and Andy took him to like a nice steak dinner and stuff, just to be like, hey, man, you know, like, we really appreciate it. Cause, and then we had, we were working with a composer and then like, that was like a year of like, he wasn't giving us what we wanted. Mm-hmm. And so that, you know, we tried to stay with him and that took a year and then we just realized we weren't going to get the type of music we wanted.
Right.
And so we had to go with another composer and so that set us back. So it was one of those things where every department was kind of just putting us behind.
Right.
And again, like, we didn't want to rush it either because in indie film, like, I feel like a lot of people just, again, I know some resources are always slim, you know, and they just want to get the thing done, and we did too. But at the same time, we're like, man, we already invested so much time and money into this. Like, let's just get it done the right way. And I'm glad we did. We did. So
because once you put it out there.
It's out.
It's out.
Exactly.
No take backs.
Yeah, exactly.
So you guys finally got it done, and then you screened it. I remember you guys had a screening
at the Alamo Draft House.
Right. Yes. And then so what was it like? I guess finding the distribution for it.
Well, yeah.
Did you guys do any festivals or anything like that?
We did. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, we did a few. I think I know we did. I think we did the comedy festival out here.
Okay.
And then there was one in like Canada somewhere that we got into, and there were a few other ones. So yeah, it made its rounds.
Yeah.
And then distro took a little bit because again, this is another hindsight thing, but.
Yeah.
You know, I feel like we were so limited because we didn't have like a name in it. And again, we had talked about that in like maybe we should get a name, get like get someone that can market it a little bit. But again, we were so young at the time and like, we didn't know.
Yeah.
We didn't know this and that. And I'll tell you another thing I think that hindered us, especially in the foreign markets, was again, this is what I heard. Was there was so much cussing.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and I think that kind of limited because I think they wanted to air it on like maybe TV or something. I don't know, and they were like, "This is too much swearing."
That work.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
We love tentacles and we love all this other, but cussing.
Yeah,
I guess there was just so much.
It was a lot.
I mean,
there was a lot, and again,
he's like, it was a lot.
Yeah, and that's I look back at it now, I'm like, oh, that's kind of cringe, but like I was. When we were when we were kids shooting on the street, like we weren't allowed to put blood and all this stuff because of certain people. My parents didn't care,
right.
But like some of the kids, their parents did.
They would,
so I always felt like I was being censored. Right. So when I went through my little rebellious stage.
Yeah, when they finally turned you loose, you were
I just put it all in there, you know.
Yeah.
And looking back, like, you know, there definitely is like the climate back then. It's a lot different now. So there's very like, to me, I look back at Doll Factory. There's definitely some problematic stuff.
Oh yeah, there's a couple lines I wish I could cut out of closet space.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why do we? Even though it's like the character's a douchebag and they're saying it, it's like you're the director, so by extension you're saying it. I'm like,
When I wrote Doll Factory too, so I even
I was trying to give you an out.
Yeah.
Steven's not gonna take this out.
No, I take
the full L. I take the full L.
But and did you write all the cursing, or was there some in there? And then
there was a lot of improv
and
too.
the actors were like, "Oh, I'm going to throw a few more fuckity fucks."
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it was a little bit of both.
And then once people start, you get in that energy, and if everybody's down, then it just becomes.
It just goes.
Yeah. It just gets like that. But yeah, that's interesting though. You never would think that would be a hindrance.
Yeah.
But it is.
That's what they told me, and I could see
because they have to cut around it or dub over it,
Exactly.
which is both are expensive. And
Was it a specific word that was used, or was it just?
I think it was just in general. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Because I would think like, shit and all that. I'm like, come on, like that's not. I mean, I get it. Like if you're saying fuck 15 times.
Well, yeah.
There you go.
It depends on the region.
like they all have different like little things that they get hung up on.
Yeah.
Because we've had to do weird things in the past, like for walking distance especially. Yeah. Where the cut around stuff, and that's interesting though. So that kind of held you back.
Yeah.
The name thing kind of held you back.
I think not having a name actor and then some of like the swearing and stuff like that really held the film back.
Yeah.
So I wish, in hindsight, I wish I would have toned that stuff down and put a name in there.
Yeah. So and then who finally picked it up?
Wild Eye did.
That's right.
Yeah.
Wild Eye.
Yeah.
And you sent them a screener, or they saw it somewhere?
I think we sent them a screener.
Okay.
Yeah. It was between Wild Eye and there was another. I can't remember the name of it now, but there was another distributor we were looking at too, and we ultimately just went with Wild Eye though.
Yeah.
So it's out on. As of now, it's out on. It did come out on DVD, right? Because I
Yeah.
remember you guys had hard copies, and then Blu-ray or no?
No Blu-ray. Yeah.
Streaming.
Yeah, it's been on Tubi for years.
Okay, yeah.
And honestly, I think that's where most people are seeing
Yeah.
it is
A
through
lot of people go
Tubi.
into
Yeah.
it, yeah.
It was on Amazon it was streaming free on Amazon for a while. It's not anymore.
I remember that.
Yeah.
Because I think that's where I watched it. You told me you were like, just go to Amazon and watch it. I was like,
You can still rent it on Amazon, but for a while it was on Prime for free.
Right. Yeah.
And I think now it's on like Crackle and like a few of those like more like low key streamers.
Yeah.
It's on there too. So
Okay.
So after Doll Factory, then what?
well then it was like there was kind of a lull after that. Which
When did you actually move to LA?
2015, like
So-
right at the beginning of 2015.
Okay, so you had finished Doll Factory and it had come out.
And that was one of the main reasons because I was gonna move out to LA a lot sooner in 2013, but Doll Factory was still in post. I was like, I need to see this through, and I knew it would be a lot harder for me to try to,
In LA,
It was easier for me just to stay in Houston,
Yeah.
get it done, and then go out there. So, in 2015 moved to LA and did that whole thing. And that's
I love the way you said that. Did that whole thing.
Well, no. I mean, I mean that's still, I guess, ongoing. I guess you could say.
Was the next thing you did, was it out there? I don't remember, because it was 1031, right? Was the next thing you did?
That was actually the last thing I did.
Okay.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, because that was right before the pandemic.
Okay,
So like when I moved to LA, like I'd gotten with a group of people. We were all kind of in the same boat, and we were just. I kind of went back. It was funny coming off Doll Factory. I was like, well, it's all uphill from here. I thought every little. Yeah. I thought. Yeah. I was I was just thinking like, okay, the next one's going to be bigger. We're going to have more money for the next one, blah, blah, blah. But, come to find out you're back at square one, which again was kind of humbling in a way and kind of got me back to my roots. Cause like, again, I got back with a group of people. We were out there just shooting stuff in LA, like a lot of shorts and stuff like that.
Yeah.
And then eventually, that led to being part of the anthology 1031 Part 2. Yeah.
But yeah, you were out there, and that's because we brought you on to Wicked Tricks.
Yes.
Which is
Was that the only? And then I remember hiring you to do something on the grounds.
I helped with the casting.
Okay, that's right.
Yeah. I was kind of helping the director with that.
You're like my guy on the street.
Yeah.
Well, by the way, Wicked Tricks is Bad Apples now. Just so
I in my head, I couldn't remember which one was which.
Yeah.
So it's called Bad Apples now, but we were just shooting that. Just like Walking Distance, I always remember what we called it for the time we were shooting it. But and we brought you on to Wicked Tricks / Bad Apples as you were. What was your position?
I was the swing.
Swing. That's right. Yeah, because that's where you met Ken. Right,
Ken.
That's where
and actually, that's where I met Chris.
Yeah,
that's right.
I knew of him, but we had never met.
Mystery.
Yeah. I was like, who's this Wolf Stephen guy? Like, what are we doing?
Yeah.
Right.
And then what was I working on where I borrowed your car? That was
that's right.
Itsy Bitsy. Remember, I was staying at Graham's and I was using his car for a little bit.
Yeah.
And so that was because I was there, but I was there for Sequence Spray.
Wasn't it Sequence?
And then overlapped into Itsy Bitsy.
I would say, you were there for Sequence, and then I was working on Itsy.
Yeah, it's all like a weird blur, but I do remember.
I remember that now. I forgot about that. Yeah. Did you just come pick the car up and then just
I think because you were here, maybe.
Yeah.
Or something.
Yeah.
There was some reason you didn't need it. You didn't need it.
Yeah,
but you did come back.
Oh, I might have been visiting Houston at the time.
Yeah, because we were going to have you on the set, but it happened to be when you were here.
Yeah, wow, I forgot about that.
Because both of us were there for a little bit.
Yeah.
So Wicked Tricks. God. So brought you on as a swing.
Which I had never done grip, never done gaffing. So
I knew it was that kind of situation.
But I knew, and you had told me, you had warned me. You're like, look, I want to. It'd be great to work with you. This is where I can put you. And I was like, yeah, I'm down. Yeah, I'm down. Because like again, I think at that point, like me and you were cool.
Yeah.
But we had never gotten to work together.
Right.
Officially.
Yeah. Well, because it had nothing. Because that was we had a lull too where we were doing stuff like. Because that was
we were just working. We weren't really getting to be creative at all.
Yeah. It was just a lot of AD line producer gigs, trying to get stuff off the ground, but it just never happened.
Right.
And in the background, kind of still working on Imago, because that's where we met Jason.
Yeah.
So that's kind of what kicked it into the next version of it.
Yeah, it's funny looking back at that set, like all the people that like ended up, that we all, I don't know, there was a lot of people I met on that set that
that's where I met Graham.
Yeah. It was
Graham,
like
Bria,
Will.
I met Will actually before that on Brian's short.
Okay.
Yeah, and then that's Will kept trying to get me work, and so he would bring me on. He liked me as an AD, which I hated because I hate doing AD work. But he and I got along, so and I like working with him. So that's that led to so many other things. And that's where I met Graham, and that's how I met Lyle and Audrey, because through Graham, I think we had just kind of talked a little bit then. And then when Graham did Sequence Break, I talked to them more. And then that led to Mystery Spot, so it all kind of,
trickled.
Yeah. And there's that's Josh and Sierra.
Yes.
On that movie.
The old Man o' Lantern.
The Man o' Lantern, that's right. That's right.
Sorry,
Kat,
spoiler alert.
Yeah, Kat, the makeup artist, Catherine. That's where we met her. You have several people that I continued to work with because that was kind of the first set of people that I'd worked with in LA that I really kind of gelled with, and I'm like, I can get along with you too. You know what I mean? Like so that I tried to bring those people on board as much as I could after that on other stuff. Like that's why West of Hell had a lot of the same people, and Sequence Break, because of Graham, thought the same way too. I think he liked all those people, so it had a lot of the same people. And so did you work on because that's when you were here. You didn't work on Sequence Break, but so what I brought up about Wicked Tricks was like the one thing I remember about that set. Whenever I'm trying to remember when it came out, I'm like, it's easy to remember because I remember all of you guys had to go see The Force Awakens the night that it came out.
Yes.
And then and
I was not in that group, by the way.
I know there were three of us that did, but also the producer, like you can't, when the producer's like the hugest Star Wars nerd, because Jason's a huge Star Wars. And everybody, because they were showing it 24 hours, right? And so I was like, well, what time are you guys going to see it? And I think you were like, like 3 a.m. or whatever. And I'm like, we got like a 9 a.m. call.
Yeah.
way.
And then the next morning, like nobody shows up and nobody's answering because you guys are all passed out or whatever.
Yeah.
But because we also were shooting up in
Lancaster.
Yeah.
So everybody had to drive.
Exactly.
That didn't stay at the house.
Yeah.
So I was also worried. I was like, well, did they get up, try to make it, and then like drive off?
Well, and I remember like I had slept past my alarm
Yeah.
for whatever reason. I don't know if it didn't go off or I just slept through it or whatever, but I remember waking up and I had like so many missed calls from you because I was like super late.
Yeah.
I was like, oh shit.
And
I
you
still
weren't
had
you
an
weren't the
hour
only everybody.
drive.
Was. It was like it was just me and Chris.
But you were worried because you knew
Yeah.
I was going out late that night.
Yeah, that's
and you were
what I
like,
was- yeah,
and I wasn't answering the phone.
I remember because one of the pictures that I took of being in the house is after everybody left. And the next morning, I think I put a post up. I was like, interesting, nobody's here on time today. And I was like, doors open, guys, whenever you get here.
But again, like no one could get bitchy because, like I said, like the main producer was like he's like, yeah, of course, I've got you know. I think he might have even seen it twice that night.
Well, because Brian went too.
Yeah,
like,
and the director, he was
everybody.
so everybody was doing it. But that's so vividly why I remember the time because it's hard for me to place times for everything else. But I just have to look up and see when did The Force Awakens come out, and it was that day that we were shooting.
Man, that was hype though. Like
Yeah,
just around that time, you know,
that was wild.
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
I
was
mean,
wild.
like I wish I could have gone, but I was like, no, like I have to be able to function tomorrow.
Yeah.
Even because I was still younger at that point, like,
Right.
but still, it was like, nah, man, like we're not gonna get back. I think Ken and I had talked about it, and we looked, and it was like we weren't gonna get back to Lancaster where we were staying till like 8 a.m. and call us at 9. I'm like, that's so stupid. There's no way.
Right.
Like we're just gonna know. Like,
Right, and even now, like twice, I've tried to go see movies when I'm working on a movie.
Yeah.
And I just can't. I can't enjoy it because like my mind is just too.
Yeah.
Maybe it's because of the position I had been working in and whatever. I couldn't just leave it
Right.
because you can't with those positions, assistant director or line producer.
Because I was saying on Psychic, y'all went and saw
The Dark Knight.
Dark Knight.
Yeah. And that's why I was all
fine with
aggro
it.
and almost
Yeah.
beat that guy up the
Yeah.
next day because I was all like, ugh.
Wait, what's that story?
I'll tell you. in a
Okay,
second.
okay.
Yeah.
That's-
I haven't heard this
It's
one.
directly movie related.
Okay.
You
Yeah.
want to make it weird, bro?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Classic one. But yeah, it's like I can't get my head out of all this shit because I've tried twice. Like once it was right before Sequence Break. X-Men Apocalypse came out.
Yep.
And I was like, it's an X-Men movie. I'm gonna go see
Yeah.
it. But I just could. Like I just could. I was just thinking the whole time.
Yeah, about lines and-
God, the schedule I got to do and whatever. And then I think maybe God, what was the? It might have been around the same time. I may have tried it twice on that same trip. I saw. Might have been. It was one of the Craig Bonds, but I don't think it was.
What year was it?
God, so that was Apocalypse. So 2016, X-Men Apocalypse.
Was that Spectre?
Yes,
Yeah,
yeah,
okay,
that's what it
yeah.
was. Yeah, and I Spectre was after or that was after Skyfall, right?
Yeah.
Yes.
There was
yeah.
the one right after.
Yeah, because I like Sky. I remember going, okay, I'm going to try to go see because I really
Yeah.
like Skyfall, right?
Yeah.
And I just don't
Couldn't.
like when I watched it. We recently did a rewatch of a lot of those, and I was like, I know I paid to see this. I remember the theater I went to.
Yeah.
I don't remember any of this.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
I kind of remember. What's his name? Christoph Waltz sitting there with his legs crossed, like when he's talking to him, he's about to drill into his eye or whatever, or his brain. Kind of remember that,
Yeah.
but other than that, maybe it's because I was like, oh yeah, I feel like that right now.
That's probably why it stood out.
That's probably why it stood out. Other than that, just a blur.
Because you line produced and AD'd Sequence, right?
No, Claire line produced.
That's right, you was
But we kind of both. We kind of overlapped a little.
Yeah, well, because y'all shared the UPN duty, I think, right?
Yes,
Because there wasn't a UPN.
Yeah, and it was just easier.
Yeah.
It was just easier. Yeah,
Right.
she did the lion's share of it, but there was a little bit of it on my end.
Yeah.
And it was just very stressful for other reasons.
Yeah.
You know, it was tough. It's that kind of movie. You know.
Yeah.
And overnights already brutal.
Brutal.
Yeah. But there's some real G's on that one too, like that I would hire to work on other stuff. And that's where I was staying at Graham's, like in the back, in his back, the house in the back, and so that's also where we got pretty close.
Yeah.
I really grew to like him, and so and now we kind of work together as much as we can.
And I think that's the benefit of like working on just going on set, working
Yeah.
on sets is the people that you can meet. You know?
Right,
Yeah.
because that's Brittany will be in here for the next show, but that's how we met. it was a very similar situation at Doll Factory, kind of, where it's like, I think her dad and a few other people had decided to give her enough money to make a real movie. And we knew Mandy and Cliff were doing makeup, I think, for them. That's how. So that was my connection to them. And they just asked, because I had the lights or whatever. And they're like, "Hey, we need lights for this thing. Can you come out and help?" I didn't know Brittany or any of them. And I'm kind of like, well, what am I walking into? Or how are they gonna like this guy just kind of walking out of nowhere and helping out? You know? But we had, we got along. I got along with her dad real well. We hit it off. And actually, I also knew her because the co-producer on the movie was the guy that introduced me and Melanie. And he gave me this. I looked at this and I remembered he gave me this editor thing. He found it at a store or something. But yeah, so I knew her through this guy too. But she didn't know me.
Right.
But obviously, we still work together. So, and there were a couple other connections I made on that set. Some better, some worse.
They all can't be winners.
They can't all. But that's really how you start building those relationships. But I didn't think it would be a situation like that when I went out there. I was like, I'm just bringing them lights.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah. I remember you calling me that day. You were like, "Hey," because I just bought because you were taking, I think you're taking the 2K and the 5K as well.
Correct. Yes.
You're like, "Hey, I'm just gonna take the 5K." I was like, "All right, cool, whatever. Don't care." You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I was like, "What are you doing?" And you were like, "Oh, this movie, I don't know, I'll tell you later." I was like, all right. But it was with Brittany, which I was like, that's interesting. And it's called
869.
869, that's it.
And I think it's because it's the badge number of the guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's how you build those relationships.
Yep.
But yeah, before I forget to tell it, so looping back to the Dark Knight story.
Yeah. Oh, yes.
So,
make it weird, bro.
Again, that was my Star Wars kind of, because maybe that's why I didn't go either, because I was like, I've already done this, and I know it's going to lead to insanity and possible jail time. Because the same thing, they were doing it overnight, and I think earlier that summer, also on walking distance, Hellboy 2 had come out, and I didn't go see it because I was like, we got to shoot tomorrow. I don't have time. I really want to. But then everybody else did, and on the set the next day, they're all spoiling everything, just talking about it. And I'm like, you sons of bitches, you're not even nerds. You don't even care about this. And you're talking about the Elf King this, the Elf King. I'm like, shut up. Stop talking. You ruin it for us. So I'm like, you know what? I'm going to get this is Batman. And I really like Batman Begins. Which those movies also have lined up with weird life. Batman Begins came out, we were shooting Witchcraft. Dark Knight with Psychic Experiment, and then Rises, we weren't shooting, but that was like the week before Reagan was born. So it was these weird life life events are aligned with these Chris Nolan movies. But so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go see The Dark Knight just because I don't want it to get ruined, and also I'm gonna try to relax. So I go see it. It's a late screen, obviously a long movie. Get home, don't get much sleep. The next day is like we're shooting a lot of stuff with Reggie. Did you ever come to our warehouse when I lived on that street?
No, Tulsa? I don't think I ever. Yeah, I don't think so.
So the warehouse was at the end of the street, and then we lived on the street as well in a house on Tulsa, over not far from here. And we had an RV because our warehouse, we couldn't really. The office part was air conditioned, and so where the set was built was hot as hell, and it's the summer, so we're like, let's get an RV so that they have an escape.
Yeah.
And we had that, I think, through most of the movie. But we had parked it. In front of because the effects guys, Marcus and them, were staying in another house on the street that my friend's dad also owned.
House?
Because my friend's dad owned most of this property, right? And so they were staying there. The RV was parked in front of their house. On the other side of the street, there's also warehouses. And apparently, I wake up to someone banging on my door. They're like, hey, you guys, you need to move the RV because they're trying to pull this semi in to this warehouses, which they're not supposed to do from that side anyway, right? Yeah. So I'm already annoyed because there's a sign because it's hard to make those turns, right? And so I'm like, fine, whatever. And I walk down there. I think I'm even in my boxers, maybe in a t-shirt, because I was so tired. We had to shoot at night. I walk down there to the house where the effects guys are to try to move the truck or the RV, and I go to move it. And as I'm getting there, the people from the warehouse keep talking to me and tell me, oh, you need to, they keep telling you what you did wrong over and over, which drives me crazy.
Oh, yeah.
Message received,
I'm
working to fix the problem, shut the fuck up. So they keep and so they're talking and I'm like, okay, it's cool, man. I'm moving it. Be out of your hair in just a second. Sorry, The effects guys are out on the porch too, and they're just kind of because they had been harassed. I guess the warehouse guys harassed them first because it's in front of where they were staying, so it's their truck, and so they're just kind of like watching, right? And I was kind of annoyed with them too at the time too. So I'm just like, everybody is just I'm at boiling point,
You were volatile.
Oh, very. I mean, we're making an indie movie.
Of course,
that's why it's like nobody's really at fault. Nobody knows the whole story.
Right.
But what made it the worst was the next door neighbor, who I later learned from my friend whose dad owns all the. He's just a busybody. He's up in everybody's shit all the time.
One of those, yeah.
But a big kind of like threatening-ish looking guy.
Yeah.
He comes over and he's like, "Well, you can't park." He's just trying to like read me all the laws and the citations that why, and I'm like. I was like, listen, man, I'm getting this fixed. Just shut the fuck up.
Yeah.
I'm gonna move the truck and we'll be done.
Yeah.
And I guess whatever I did, I feel like I said it just like that. I don't think I yelled at him.
Yeah.
I didn't touch him or anything. Yeah. But everybody, it just quiets. Like some shit's gonna start.
Yeah.
And when that happened, I thought, oh, he's reaching back to swing or so I'm looking to see if he's gonna, But I guess it was just maybe my energy was weird or whatever, right? Up to that point, maybe I was calling. I finally was like, all right, man, And then he just looks at me, and he does the chest thing, and he goes, "You want to get weird? Are we gonna get weird?" And I'm like, in my mind, like it was hard, and I see Marcus out of the corner of my eye. He's like trying not to laugh at this. Yeah. And because the guy goes, "You want to get weird?" And the first thing in my mind is like, "I'm gonna dress up like a clown and get on a tricycle."
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Like,
yeah. And I mean, I knew what he meant, but it's just a weird, and it's a way to escalate the situation.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Look, I'm gonna move." I'm trying not to laugh, and I think that made him madder.
Yeah.
Because I'm kind of like laughing at his threat too.
Yeah.
And I was like, "I'm just trying to move this RV. Let me just take this back to the house and everything will be fine." And I'm also like waiting to see, because I'm like, this could also be a powder, like these guys could run over and start hitting me, or whatever. And I know that the guys on the porch aren't going to help me. You know what I mean? So like, I'm in enemy territory. So but it calmed down a little bit, and I got in the RV, and I kind of like, as angry as you can drive an RV, turned it around just to get down to my house. And I guess by this point, Melanie had come outside and saw what was going on, and she had walked down to where while I'm bringing the RV back, she had walked down to where the effects guys were. And she decided that she's going to try to talk the guy down even more, right? Yeah. And I try to explain what's going on. And so I get out of the RV and I'm like, "Why is she down there?" And they're all talking to him. And I see he's just gesticulating, wildly. And I see him do something like this, like it looks to me like he's gonna hit her.
Oh.
And I swear to God, running like Robert Patrick down the street. and you know what? So the guy's, this is important because the guy's back is to me, and Melanie is facing me, and I see the guy's arm raise. And then I'm just like, okay, I guess I'm going to jail today, because he's gonna hit, my fiance at the time. And so wife. Yeah. And so I just start fucking hauling ass. And the guys at the warehouse everybody sees me coming like a fucking freight train. Yeah. And I just see Melanie look around the side of him and just go, like, it's slow motion is what it seemed like. She's like, no. Because I was like lifting up I was going to hit him as hard as I could, And then so I slowed, I was like, and then I guess I made it convincing, because by the time I got to behind the dude, he turned around and I was like, "Hey buddy, I'm sorry, it's just, like talking him down." And he was like, "Well, I just," it's the same thing. Like he's trying to be the enforcer of the neighborhood or whatever. Come to find out that he just is that kind of guy, right? Busybody, likes to get up anybody's shit. And I would see him all the time walking around or whatever. And, there was no problem past that. But I know the guys in the fucking warehouses thought I was a fucking crazy person. Yeah. And I remember that the effects guys didn't really give me much shit after that. Like, there were a lot of verbal blowouts before that, but after that, they're like, "This guy's fucking unhinged." That's what. But yeah, but also, like, none of that would have happened if I hadn't been so tired, so frustrated, and just at my wits' end from working on the fucking movie. And then I saw The Dark Knight.
Yeah.
You know what I
It
mean?
just
So I'm like,
amplified
you know, I know this street is full of good people. You know, I was just like, I had Batman all running through my veins. Yeah. So I was just ready to cause havoc. You know, but yeah, I always think about like and that's not the only time I've lost it like that on a set. You know, I'm embarrassed to say.
Right.
Not that's the worst experience, probably example, but you know, you just get so tired. And that's when I started to realize, oh, maybe this isn't for me, you know, or this position, you know, or even this situation, you know, like I should not be doing things like this if they're going to make me feel like this. Like I should be enjoying this process.
Well, also the other thing you're not saying, which I think we've talked about a million times, but you were also wearing like 15 different hats.
Right. And working still.
Yeah. It wasn't like you were just directing.
Right,
you know what I mean? Like where if you were just like,
yourself so thin.
right. Like, I mean, let's be real, like, cause I did it. I'm sure you've done it.
Yeah.
Like it's just, it's not healthy to any environment. You know what I mean? When you're that thin and you're fucking sleeping for what, maybe an hour and a half at some nights, and it's like you have to get up and you have to command a set. Like it's fucking hard, you know.
Yeah, and it was tough because that, like I said, Reggie was there, and that kind of messed with my mind a little bit because you know I grew up watching Phantasm and all his movies, so I'm like, okay, I gotta, you know, really have it together. I can't disappoint him, you know, and so it's like all that's working on me, and all kinds of the shit that you know that you usually deal with. So
of course,
and I'd like to think that I haven't really put myself in that kind of a situation. I really don't feel like I had moments like that on Mystery Spot. It was more like internal. Mm-hmm. Like I was having internal struggles. Like I feel like everybody around me is like running around with sparklers and like, this is the greatest set ever.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, fuck, go.
I mean, literally, like everybody was like, this is great. And Bill's like, I'm going to go fucking have lunch in my car. We're like, what are you doing?
Yeah, I had to though. There was a lot going on, you know? And there was a lot, but I wasn't oblivious to the fact that everybody else was enjoying it,
right?
You know, or seeming to have a good time.
Yeah,
and like when Mike came out and barbecued and all that, like that was all nice and you know, good for morale. But yeah, I strive to not do that again. So back to you. So you work on Wicked Tricks. We hired you you help with the casting on The Grounds.
Yeah. Which, by the way, whatever happened to that? So, I'm sure that's another long story.
Did
it ever come out?
I can summarize it really quick. So basically, long story short, basically what happened is they had some money issues. Mm-hmm. That got resolved, and they had some cast issues. Mm-hmm. That also got resolved, but now with resolving that, they spent the money they were going to spend on post, and essentially they've renamed it, but it's like it's just spinning the circle because they're trying to finish post essentially.
Yeah. So maybe it'll come out one day.
Maybe we'll see.
Yeah.
A tale as old as time. Unfortunately,
such a bummer.
Yeah. And did you only help with casting, or I feel like you were on the set like
no, because they shot in Vegas, right?
Correct. Yeah. You didn't drive out there you didn't bring me something.
I think at one point we discussed me going out there to work, but it just didn't work out.
Right. Okay. Yeah. I thought
I probably couldn't get the time off work or something like that.
Yeah, because you were working at the time.
That sounds right, because I remember you saying, hey, I might bring Stephen out to help, and then it didn't happen.
Yeah, I'm sure we talked about it for sure.
But yeah, the usual suspects were on them pretty much, like Ken, you, me, Mark, Brittany. Who am I forgetting? Jason was the producer. Yeah, so kind of like that.
And then we filled in the gaps with Vegas.
That's right. Yeah. Again, meeting people like Katie that we still try to use whenever we can. So you're always finding at least one or two good people along the way. So then was 1031 the first thing you did after that, or was there something I'm missing in between?
We were doing stuff like I said, we were doing like little shorts and stuff like that.
So you did like Dracula's Coffin.
Yeah, right. Okay, that's what
there was something else.
Yeah.
Ken shot that, right?
No, he was going to.
Okay.
He was going to. But he was on. Funny enough, I remember while we were shooting Dracula's Coffin, Ken was shooting. He was on something literally like on the corner of the block of where I lived.
Oh, really?
They were at a gas station, and I remember someone who I had described Ken, but they had never seen a picture of him or anything. Yeah. I think they walked back to the house. They went down to the store to get something, and they were like, I think I saw your buddy Ken. They're shooting right up here. And I was like, really? He's like, yeah. And then you described him like, like 8 feet tall, like long red hair, beard, tattoos. And I'm like, that sounds like Ken. And I walked down there and it was him. Yeah.
Really likes pizza.
Yeah. And it was him. And I was like, oh shit. But no, he couldn't do it. But yeah, that actually, to this day, I think Dracula's Coffin was like the best experience. Like, it was stressful shooting it because again, we were shooting on no money. We were shooting in the house where I lived, and I had roommates and stuff, so it it added a lot of stressors to that shoot. But man, I think that one is the one I'm the most proud of, though.
And it's a short.
It's a short, but it's like 30 minutes long. Right. Yeah. And it's definitely one of those projects where I'm like, I want to turn it into a feature one day. But yeah, that was a great experience, and that one actually like did pretty well in festivals and stuff like that. Funny enough, the reason that project came about was I had worked with this guy years ago. He lives out in like Arkansas. His name's Matt Spees, and he made like, and again, this is before I found out there was a Houston community, blah 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 blah.
Right.
And I found this guy online because I think he had made like he made a fan film. I think it was like Jason versus Leatherface or Michael, one of those kind of things, you know. And I would go to his site. I was like, oh, he makes his own movies and stuff like that. And I think I started following him on probably like at the time it was probably MySpace or something, you know. And he was doing a little anthology. And he needed, he was asking for like, hey, if I'm down to collaborate with other people if they want to be a part of this. And I had never done anything like that. And I hit him up and ended up shooting kind of part of the wraparound segment for the anthology. And I sent him the footage and he put it all together. And it was a good experience. But he after that, he kept making these anthologies. It just became like a little series of his. And he kept wanting me to do another segment. But I just, I ended up doing the features and moving to LA, and I was just busy. I just didn't have time to do something like that. And eventually, I think he had sent me the script for Dracula like years ago. I just never had time to open it or look at it. But when I got together with that group in LA and we were just looking for stuff to do, I think he maybe had messaged me again and was just like, hey, you want to do that? It's like, you know what? Let me look at the script, and we are looking for something to do right now. Maybe this would be a fun little thing to do.
Yeah.
And we read the script, and like, it was decent, but I was like, but it definitely needed a rewrite. Mm-hmm. And because I don't even think he wrote it. I think one of his buddies or someone wrote it, and but I saw the potential in it.
Yeah.
And so I was like, hey, I'll do this, but I want creative control. I want to like rewrite the script, blah blah blah. And he was fine with that. He just kind of let me go do it. Because we're doing it for free anyway. Right. I think he was just more like, yeah, I'm glad. I've been begging you for years to do another thing.
Do something.
Yeah. And so we rewrote it and got it put together, shot it and everything. And but it was one of those things too, where like, as we were shooting it, we're like, man, this is really good. Mm-hmm. And I was just going to hand the footage over to him, and he was going to edit it and put it into the film, which was fine, and I was cool with that. But at the same time, I was kind of like, man, I really want to do like my own version of this. Like, I want to be able to edit this, or like give it to my editor and like give it the attention that I into it, because I think this is really good. Mm-hmm. And so I made a deal with him. I was like, here, I'll give you the footage. You can do your own version of it, but I want to do my own version. He was cool with that. And so, so like now and I haven't seen his version of it yet, but I'm kind of curious to like compare and contrast what I ended up using, what he ended up using and stuff like that.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Yeah. But yeah.
Nice. And you did a werewolf movie with Graham and Ken, right?
Oh, well, it wasn't a movie. It was like, I had this idea I wanted to do. I actually got linked up with Vincent DeSante, and he's the guy that did that viral Jason fan film, Never Hike Alone. Mm-hmm. And so at the time, we were kind of like dipping our toes into that realm of like, oh, maybe we'll do a fan film because it can draw an audience and stuff like that, Mm-hmm. And so I had an idea. I love like the Universal monsters, and I've like a dream project of mine is to do like a monster mashup kind of film with like all the classics and stuff like that, and it still is to this day. But I was like, man, it would be kind of cool to do like like a mashup of like the old school monsters with like the new horror icons and like pit them against each other and stuff like that. And so I came up with this
copyright.
Yeah,
Just saying it out for him. Copyright.
Yeah, and so the first
I'm just
one,
gonna bleep out everything, like your whole page. Be like,
yeah, I don't want anyone to steal it.
Right.
And the first one was going to be called Jason Meets the Wolfman. It was going to be Jason Voorhees and the Wolfman. Yeah. And so, we went out to Big Bear and we shot like a little like concept trailer because we were going to do like a whole like Indiegogo Kickstarter, get the funds to do like the full thing. And that never went anywhere. We did shoot the concept trailer.
Yeah.
And then we didn't ever, like originally we didn't even, it was kind of a shit show like shooting that. Like I was like understaffed and
keep talking. I was gonna check this.
Yeah. We were understaffed. It was just kind of a hectic little like shoot in Big Bear.
Yeah.
And honestly, like I remember, I was like at that point. I think after that night, that project was dead because I was kind of like that was so bad.
Yeah,
like,
it was brutal.
yeah, it wasn't fun. But eventually, like years later, I think Vincent actually was like, he was like, hey, whatever happened to that? And I was like, I mean, we had a cut of the little like thing we shot, but we haven't done anything with it. And he's like, send it to me. I want to see it. And I sent it to him. He loved it. He's like, oh, we got to finish this. If anything, just to put it out on YouTube.
Yeah.
And I was like, okay, that's fine. And I think when he reached out, it was like a month or two before Halloween. He's like, oh, we can just put it out for like a little Halloween thing.
Yeah.
I'll throw it on my channel.
Yeah.
Are you cool with that? I'll get, some of his editor and stuff, and he'll finish it. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Anyway, so we finished it, put it out there, and it was received really well.
Yeah.
And we've talked about maybe revisiting it because it is a cool idea, but I'm kind of over the fan film stuff.
Yeah.
I mean, honestly, like, yeah, it would be fun to do, but I'd rather just do something original, something that could actually like lead to something,
Right.
So
Right. Yeah.
that was that.
Because unfortunately, right, like the fan. I hate to say this because I do enjoy the fan films.
Of course,
right?
yeah. Some of them are really good,
But they kind of box you in some
Yeah.
ways.
Yeah.
Because then everybody knows you as the fan film
Exactly.
guy, right?
Exactly.
And that's kind of why I was like, I would love to do like something like that, but I'm also like, no.
Yeah.
Like, because I've had buddies that done the same thing, and I'm just like,
Well, and I've noticed too, because I think everyone has the same idea, right? They're like, hey, let's do a fan film because it'll draw an audience to us, and if we do it good, they'll stick around.
Right.
And I think for Vincent, it's actually worked out, but like, I feel like he's one of the rare exceptions because I feel like he was kind of a pioneer of like, he kind of put horror fan films, like when Never Hike Alone came out, I feel like everyone was trying to match kind of what he did.
Yeah.
He set the standard,
Yeah.
right? And I've seen a lot of people try to follow in his footsteps, and it's funny because like they'll do a fan film and they'll put it out, it'll get like millions of views, and then they're like, okay, now I'm going to try to do something original, and no one cares. You know what I mean?
Right.
Yeah.
Like that whole audience that saw it, liked it.
Yeah.
They don't stick around. You know, they're like, do a sequel to that.
they want to see,
Yeah.
they want to see you do more of the
Yeah.
same thing, which
Right.
are like, hey, I want to do something my own. I don't want to just
Right.
keep ripping off what's already been done.
So I think it's like you get the instant gratification of doing a fan film because you do get an audience, you get the feedback, you get the views, but long term, there's nothing there, you know. So
Yeah. So then I guess that leads us to 1031, right?
yeah, and that one was I'm trying to think. Okay, so I'd heard of the first 1031, and the producer on that, Rocky Gray, who actually is the ex drummer of Evanescence.
Right.
Yeah.
I knew I'd seen his name.
Yeah.
Like I'd seen it anywhere.
Yeah. And I think we had been friends on Facebook or something, and he was getting ready to do the second one.
Yeah.
And I just emailed him, and I was like, hey, are you looking for another filmmaker for this one? Because the first one was received pretty well, and it got, it was everywhere.
Right.
And stuff like that. So I remember thinking to myself, like, if he ever does a sequel, I'm going to try to get on that. And just if anything, just for exposure, you know. And so he was like, he actually was looking for another filmmaker. And he's like, send me some of your stuff. So I sent him some of the shorts. I think I probably sent him like a trailer to Doll Factory or whatever. And he was like, okay, yeah, you're in. And so again, that was an amazing opportunity, but man, it was tough, man. It was tough, especially shooting in LA, we actually shot in Lancaster.
Yeah.
Because And I was like, because he did give us a little bit of a budget, but I mean, it was like, and comparatively, I'm grateful that we had some money, because usually we're doing it using our own money. Yeah. But he gave every filmmaker a little bit of money to go do a segment, but they had to be like 30 minutes. Yeah. And I was like, okay, well, we're gonna have to, like, the way we write this, we're gonna have to just be very like strategic and stuff like that. And so most of my story was in a car. Oh. But even just to shoot in the car, I was like, we need the space to have the car, to do the lighting the right way, to make it look like it's actually driving and stuff. But I needed a house too, and I ended up finding this guy's. I think it was on like Peer Space or one of those. Yeah. Where like you can rent a set for our house or whatever you're looking for a certain amount. Right. And he was cheap, but he was out of the way in Lancaster. Yeah. And so that was a rough shoot. It was a rough shoot.
Ken was on that one too, right?
Ken shot that one. Yeah.
I think he showed me a still. It's like some purple. He used a really cool purple lighting effect, which I thought.
And it was cool too, because like that series, a lot of people kind of go for. And again, instinctively, I was going to do something similar, where everyone's kind of doing like splatter, your typical like fun kind of anthology kind of stuff. But my team, they really wanted to kind of do something more like out of the box and stuff, and I'm glad I did. But I knew, I was like, the audience, like, I feel like our segment, because we did this like weird it was like kind of an alien thing where it like takes over your body kind of thing. It was kind of like what's that movie with the alien thing that jumps from body to body?
Oh, The Hidden?
The Hidden. It was kind of like The Hidden, but like more psychological and stuff like that. I was like, I feel like the audience that watches these are going to love it or hate it. And that's exactly what happened. Like, some people are like, oh, I love that segment because it's so different and everything. Yeah. But then some people are like, I hated that one. It was boring. I didn't understand it and stuff like that. But, I as a filmmaker, I'm typically more drawn to the splattery or like just the fun kind of like creep showy kind of stuff. Yeah. But I wanted to kind of like do something more out of my wheelhouse too,
So you were the Jason Goes to Hell.
Yes.
Surrounded by Jasons.
Yeah. No, that's a great comparison. Yeah.
So exactly. Yeah. Because that's how people react to that one too.
And it's funny enough, Rocky actually just emailed me. So he's done a third one, and I thought he was going to stop at the third one, because I think at the time I had asked him how many more of these he's going to do. It's like, I think I'm going to do one more and that's it. But for whatever reason, he emailed me recently. Now he's doing a fourth and fifth one. Oh yeah. And the fourth one's already done. It's coming out this October. But he's like, I'm looking. I want to work with some of the people I've worked with before. On the fifth one, he's like, would you be interested in doing another segment? And I was kind of like, yeah. Because I feel like now I kind of know what to expect. Right, sure. And so I think I'm going to do another one.
Yeah.
Nice. Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's my, I guess, final question. So that's what's up next for you, probably?
Yeah, there's some other stuff in the works. In fact, me and Chris are talking about doing a little short together. It's a really fun idea. Yeah. But, I'm itching to get another feature going, Obviously, that's the long-term goal. And, there's stuff in development, but who knows if it'll come to fruition or not. So we'll see.
Yeah. It's the same old story.
It's the same old story.
Yeah. Yep. Well, awesome, dude. It was great catching up with you today.
Yeah, thanks for having me on.
Is there before we let you go, like anything you want to plug or promote, like where people can find you?
You can find me on Instagram. It's Stephen with a PHG and then Wolfe with an E on the end. And that's the one I update the most. So that's the one that you'll see. Whatever does end up coming into fruition, that's where it'll be.
Gotcha. Yeah. So, and then your stuff that's out there that people can watch.
Yeah.
Doll Factory, you said, is on Tubi.
Yep.
And
a few other things.
A few other places. Just search for
or if you want a physical copy, you can buy it off Amazon.
Yeah, and just DVD. When I looked it up, there's a couple other movies named Doll Factory.
Yeah, now.
Of course, now.
Yeah.
So look for the one with Steve. What's on the cover?
It's the little baby dolls, and they're like in the factory.
Yeah, directed by Stephen Wolfe.
Yeah.
And then Dracula's Coffin. Can people watch that?
Not yet, but long story short, I think Dracula will actually be part of a horror anthology now.
Okay.
And that's supposed to come out this year, I think, but to be determined.
Okay. And then 1031.
That's available, I think. That's streaming. I think that one's actually on Screenbox and stuff. But there's a DVD. There is a Blu-ray.
Part 2, right?
Part 2, yeah.
Part 2.
Yeah.
Cool. So that's where you can find Stephen Wolfe and all of his stuff. Definitely look him up. Stephen, thanks again for coming.
Thanks for having me.
Glad to finally get you on here.
Yeah.
All right. We'll catch you guys next time.
Adios.
Later.